Hello everyone, my name is Tom Giraud from the Technological University of Troyes, and today I'll be talking about our work on the relational design of an interactive map to foster accessibility to a rural place for visually impaired people. Although almost half of the world population live in rural areas, HCI and accessibility research still mainly focus on urban spaces. However, a countryside trip can be a vitalizing experience and an opportunity to negotiate disability representation. In this paper, we report on the work we conducted with the rural village of Grandam in order to develop accessible tourism for blind people. In the context of this small rural village, accessibility cannot be achieved by acting on the environment or by empowering the person through assistive technologies, but by developing supportive relationships. Grounding our work on relational approach to design, our standpoint has been to design an artifact as an entry point to Grandam, an object that sets up situation of dialogue and negotiation. In our approach, accessibility is not seen as an outcome, but rather as a dialogical process to be supported. So how can a map play a role in this relational and frictional process on accessibility? Well, although the interactive map have mainly been considered in a usability perspective by HCI researchers, this vision of maps as a means of spatial knowledge acquisition has been questioned by constructivist, queer, and critical geographies. In these critical perspectives, access maps are more than information providers. They connect diverse communities around the territory, and as never fully formed, they produce knowledge and practices. Overall, an access map becomes a relational tool for collective inquiry. The idea of the accessible map emerged from a one-year action research project about the design of an inclusive rural state called See It. This project has been initiated by LIROSI, an association involved in the domain of visual impairment, and located in Grandam, a 36-inhabitant rural village in France. 3 blind people participated in this project and accepted to spend a 3-day-long experimental stay in the village. 2 essential outcomes of this project were the initiated mutual sensitization between the 2 engaged communities and the development of a culture of participation. From the observation that improving the accessibility of Grandam will involve the development of more exchanges between visitors and locals, we have chosen to ground our work in a relational approach to design. With the map design, we intended to encourage visitors to engage in exploring activities, enable locals to present their territory with an artifact they own, and trigger exchanges between visitors and locals to contribute to ongoing reflections about accessibility. We adopted a dialogical approach to participatory design, where the various workshops aim at creating context for mutual sense-making. The design process consisted in a series of 6 design encounters, either with the blind participant or the locals. The first 2 correspond to the ideation phase, followed by 2 workshops around higher fidelity prototypes, and concluded by 2 installation workshops on the field with the final prototype. We initiated the design process with the first workshop with blind participants. With this workshop, we intended to review what could be interesting to discover during a visit of Grandam. With their experience of the village in mind, participants proposed ideas related to the discovery of the natural surroundings, the history of the area, and the local practices. Many of the proposed ideas were spontaneously associated with accessible activities, such as flora recognition through smells or adaptation of relaxing places with benches. Building on the themes elaborating in the previous session, a second workshop intended to foster exchanges about how an interactive map could provide a first contact with the territory. When discussing ways to represent key landmarks, 2 literal materializations appear misaligned with both their field experience and the need for continuous tactile exploration. Trails, although less smooth than roads, were described as relaxing and bumpy, better represented by a rope than spec materials. Lastly, discussions around wildlife and village history delineated a new type of information which could be delivered through the map, a type of information that is fragmentary but situated, for example through anecdotes, to arouse the visitor curiosity. After these 2 workshops, we decided to design prototypes of the interactive map. The identification of landmarks as rather smooth and continuous element, and our sensitization to the sensibility of tactile exploration oriented us toward the idea of a smooth single material map. Several variation organic patterns were designed to provide a continuous experience through smooth actions. Lastly, we decided to design a light and flexible audio annotation tool to be handled by the locals. We identified the PenFriend, an already existing assistive technology, as an interesting off-the-shelf annotation tool. We designed 3D printing elements to receive the stickers and made them movable through a system of magnets. For the third workshop, we intended to exchange about design decisions with blind participants. Discussion quickly moved on locating the map prototypes in their experience of Grand Dame. Through the exchanges about pattern variation, we've got attuned to proportions and shapes that tactily work for the map. It appeared important to participants that permanent information milled in the map should be related to the field reality. The idea of enabling locals to draw non-permanently walking loops on the map emerged as another way to annotate the map. The audio annotation system was quickly handled, and discussions emerged about the possibility to record messages themselves to make jokes or share information with other visitors. At this moment of the project, we estimated that the map design was concrete enough to present it to locals. Locals delineated more precisely the various identified areas and debated which trails were practicable. This encouraged us in the idea to provide them a way to non-permanently indicate walking loops. Discussions about a conifer area, important for the village, motivated us to add a new associated pattern. Lastly, when debated about where to add a K on the map, locals rejected the idea to mill it directly on the map. At the end of the exchanges, we felt that the locals project themselves in the use of the accessible map, being excited of owning this artifact. For the final map design, we added the conifer tree patterns, adjusted the trails according to the locals' feedback, and designed two tablet keys which can be tied on the side of the map. We also identified the walking loops by yellow ropes non-permanently glued, and we prepared 30 totems with their magnet and two pen friends. Lastly, we chose to put the map on a heavy single-leg stand, a choice which enables people to interact with the map from anywhere while being steady. With the final map installation, we intended to facilitate the appropriation of the map by locals and develop a sense of ownership, this moment being presented as a handover of the map. The map was placed in the central place of the resource center, and discussions arose about local perception of the territory and how the map made them to see it differently. When positioning totems on the map, locals rejected the idea to glue audio stickers directly on the map when needed. They preferred to preserve the integrity of the map and adapt their stories to the magnet constraints. Lastly, the mayor told us that he wanted to present the map to the person in charge of the trails. We perceived this new dynamic about walking activities as a promising hint of the potential impact of the accessible map. The last encounter involved the two communities. On the invitation of locals, the person in charge of the trails joined the workshop. The map exploration quickly raised discussion between locals and blind people about trails and topology. Of particular importance for us was that exploring the map spontaneously raised discussion around accessibility. As an example, one participant raised the question of caretakers and the possibility to provide portable paper map for sighted people, and a discussion arose with the person in charge of the trails about how to make raised line maps. The work done after the map discovery was the occasion for blind participants to further question locals about the village surroundings. Interestingly, blind participants signified to the local that, through minimal adaptation and punctual aids, making this place accessible was accessible to them. Through the different encounters, we've got attuned with the various sensibilities of the two groups we were engaged with. We think that the material qualities of the final interactive map reflects this standpoint entanglement. For example, the design of the single material wooden map was meant to address the need for simplicity and sensoriality in the tactile experience, but it also made sense in what could be valued by the locals, a durable and frugal artifact evoking traditions over innovation. Overall, we found ourselves interpreting what we later on interpreted as a boundary object. Beyond material qualities, this cross-appropriation also emerged at the process level. For blind people, the project was an occasion of contributing to an accessibility project, and for locals, an opportunity to attract new activities in the territory. Lastly, with this project, we believe we made the point that a new HCI perspective on interactive map is to envision accessible map as a collective material intervention. In this regard, map design can be a means for inclusive placemaking, and as discussed in post-representational cartography, a space of collective inquiry and inter-community engagement. Well, thank you, and we're happy to take any question and pursue the discussion offline.